Welcome, all my future go-getters. My name is Terrell Curry, founder and managing partner at Infinite Business Strategy, and I'd like to thank you for joining us in this week's Infinite Business Strategies. Let's talk about it. Now, last week we ended our series on unlocking hidden potential, and we thought it was appropriate to end that series on a subject that I love to talk about and like to encourage, and that's getting professional coaching. This week, we thought it would be just as appropriate to kick off our new series, which is Everything Leadership. But we wanted to get on the other side of that spectrum. We wanted to understand from a coaching perspective, what does a best in class leader do with coaching? And there's no better person that I can think of than the person that we left off with last week to kick off this new series, and that's speaker, author, and career strategist, Miss Bernie Frazier. How are you doing, Bernie?
I'm good. Hello, hello. It's good to join you again. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. You know, at the end of our last conversation, I told you I can talk to you all day, and that led me to do a part two.
Well, the feeling is mutual, so that's why I'm back.
Very good. Well, you know what, Bernie? I'm going to jump right into it because we had such a great conversation. And I'm hoping that over the weekend you got to enjoy some of that beautiful weather that continued. I know last week you were very busy. Please tell me you weren't busy over the whole weekend.
No, I was not. I did get to take in a little bit of it. With all of the COVID activity that is not going on, should I say, we're kind of limited in what we can do, but we were able to take in a really nice picnic. So that was always good.
Very good. Picnics. You have
Yeah.
a place of choice you like to go to, or is this a backyard picnic?
No, wait, no, you want to get away, and that's the whole point. You can go to the backyard anytime. So we've actually found a nice little spot in Babbler State Park that we've been enjoying. And even when they closed the parks down, we discovered that, that was St. Louis County parks that did not include state parks. So
Ooh.
we were able to enjoy Babbler, and we've gone back several times. There have been two or three others we visited, but that one, like I said, we found a little cozy nook, and that one seems to work for us.
Babbler Park. I'm going to have to check that one out.
Yeah, absolutely. You may see us out there. You never know.
Very good. Well, you know what, Bernie? Last week we kind of got to discuss your book. And, I dug a little more into the book. And I know your book was Your Success is in You. And that really resonates with me. I know there's more to the title, but I'm gonna let you explain a little bit of that. How do you actually empower and equip people to reach their success?
Well, I help them, first of all, start by answering a really, really important question. And it's funny that we're talking about this because I had a coaching session earlier today with the client, and I'm driving this question home. And that one is, what do you want? And I think a lot of times people don't feel empowered because they feel like I'm just working. There's no rhyme, there's no reason. I'm not working toward anything. I'm just showing up every day. I'm doing a job and I'm going home, but there's no bigger picture. And so I think one of the ways that I try to help people is find that bigger picture. What is it that you want? And anyone who's in leadership has probably faced an employee who may have been what I call bored, burned out, and frustrated. But when you ask them, well, what do you want? How can I help you? They go, I don't know. What are you to do with that? And so what I'm trying to do is to get people to answer that question. And it's not just at the staff level or that individual contributor level. I've worked with top executives who cannot answer that question. And a lot of times for them, it's not so much what you want. What do you want? Because they have achieved a lot. But it's, as I always say, unless you're looking to retire within the next 12 months or so, what do you want next? And so that is one way, because when people start to figure out what it is they want, all of a sudden they start to find a little more purpose in their efforts. Or they start to realize that what they're doing is not taking them down the path that they want, but they feel empowered now because they know what they want and they can start to identify what changes they need to make.
Oh, wow, that's exciting. So you don't always know what you want, but it's important to understand what you want.
Well, yeah, I mean, most people I have found don't know. And I would say I probably started really asking that question more and more about 6 years ago, and it's just kind of escalated over time. And I haven't kept tick marks, on it. But if I had to look back 6 years and think about the people that I've asked that question, I would say probably 90% cannot answer that question clearly. Now, they may be able to give you an answer, but it's not one that often satisfies that question. And I even talk about that in the book too, of, when I ask people that question, they give me an answer to one of five other questions. And I will sit patiently and listen. And then I go, okay, but now let's get back to my question. What do you want? And then they go, oh. And I go, yeah, it's not a little question. It's a big one, but every decision as it relates to career, and not just career, as it relates to business, as it relates to life, hinges upon your answer to that question. How you plan, the decisions you make, where you go, who you need to know, all of those things hinge upon what is it you're trying to achieve. And so many people, again, they don't answer that question. So that's why many of them are bored, burned out, and frustrated.
Wow. That you can lead a horse to water, but you can't always make them drink, right?
You cannot always make them drink. We try, but there's a third part to that. You can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink, but you can give them salt.
I like that. I like that. I'm gonna have to start using that one.
Yeah, and so I
Give them
try to
salt.
give people salt. Try to give them a little salt.
Very good. Just because you're a leader, and we're going to focus on everything leadership, but just because you're a leader, and even if you have a coach, what do or how do successful leaders succeed with the coaching they receive? Just because you get it don't mean that you receive it. Like you said, you lead them to water, but now what?
Well, a coach has to I'm not a coach, a client, and if they're a leader, and really it applies at all levels, they have to be open, because with coaching, it depends upon how they come to you. And, there are some clients that you get, they are spending their money and they're doing this on their time. And so they have a little more skin in the game and they usually are a little more ready to receive. Now, if you're working with someone who maybe their boss wants them to and partake of some coaching, they will start to understand why. Hopefully, that boss has done a good job of explaining. Here's some things I want you to focus on, and they've tried to make it positive. But those clients still can be a little untrusting at first. And so, they may not always receive it as readily. And it's a process you have to go to, one, to build trust, to let them know that your goal is to help. It's not to compete. It's not to break them down, but it's really to help them out.
Wow. I've seen organizations that kind of force their leadership to go through coaching. And I kind of liken it to my kids playing basketball. Even that 12th man on the bench, they have a coach. That doesn't necessarily make them successful, right? But what do
Exactly.
you see in the success of those individuals that pursue coaching on their own? What do you see in those in their success?
Well, one, again, is a willingness. They are willing to participate, they're willing to listen. And it's not that a coach is directing them, and as a coach, you're not telling them what to do, but you're helping them to see things that they normally may not see. You're helping them to identify blind spots. You're presenting a set of options for them and helping them to think through and talk through those so that they can start to make those best decisions. And that a lot of times the difference is how quickly you get to that point. Again, when someone is paying for it, it's their check that they're writing out of their money. They're like, okay, I'm ready for this. And often they've already identified the need. That's why they're coming to get coaching. Whereas someone who is being forced, told, they may be a little resistant. They may have a bit of a I already know it or know it all attitude about it. And so they will shut down. And you have to kind of work through that in order to get them to start to open up. So willingness is clearly one. Another is honesty. And I tell my clients, I said, it's Vegas rules. What we talk about stays between us. Now, unless you tell me you tested positive for COVID and you're going to the grocery store and you're going to go cough on people, okay, then I'm forced to start to say something to someone else. But I let them know that what we talk about stays between us. I may even use some of what we talk about as an example, but I would never position it in a way that anyone could ever figure out who it is. But I use that to help other people as well. But they have to be honest, because if your head is hurting, but you're telling me it's your foot, then I'm working to try to address your foot, and it's not really getting to the real problem. And so it's a total waste. It's a waste for the client. It's a waste for me, because my goal is to help. And if I am not helping you to move the needle, I feel like I'm wasting my time as well. And that's not what I want to do. But I certainly don't want to waste the client's time, and I don't want to waste their employer's money on the coaching, because my goal is to help them make improvements, to start to see blind spots that maybe they just can't see. And we all have them. And that's one of the beauties of coaching. They can help you see things that you go, oh, wow, I've never thought of it like that. Because we can't have all the answers. And so that's why we need a partner and someone who's willing to partner. They see partnership and they're willing to engage in it.
That is very interesting. You know, I'm curious, when you ask some of your clients what their expectations are, what are some of those that are successful from your coaching sessions? What are some of the things they come prepared with as far as an expectation?
Well, yeah, it really depends upon what their goals are. I have worked with clients who are in need of job search coaching. So when I'm helping them in that sense, it probably is a little more directive than any other time, because I'm sharing information. I spent many years leading recruiting teams and working and leading in corporate recruiting. So I'm able to share insights. And so that way it's a little more directive. But if it's from a job search standpoint, it may be help with a resume. It may be, I haven't interviewed in 15 years. I need some help with this. I run into people, they've never negotiated a job offer, and I let them know you've probably left thousands on the table. And so I will help them with negotiating. It could be networking and all of the different components of a job search. There are clients that they may have had some degree of success in their career, but they're done with that chapter. And so they want to explore other career paths. And sometimes they know the path that they want to go down. Other times they go, I'm just not sure how I can use my experience, but I know I don't want to continue doing what I've been doing. And so we go through kind of an exploratory process to help them start to identify a career path that works for them. And, a lot of times it's one of those two, but I certainly have clients too that they're working, their career is going fine, but they want to continue the trajectory up. Or maybe they want, things are going well, but they know at some point they'd like to make a lateral move and to shift their career, but still within their same organization. So I help them navigate their environment. And a lot of times it's around personal branding. What is your current brand? Let's figure that out. And let's talk about what your brand needs to be for where it is you want to go. So again, a lot of that, it still goes back to that question, what do you want? And then we start a program that will help them with whichever path they want to take.
Wow, that's some great advice. That's incredible.
Thank
You
you.
know what? I have to acknowledge the fact that we're in 2020 and we have some unique challenges today.
Yes.
What are the critical skills leaders need today to help them that coaching can actually provide them help with?
It's funny. I actually do a talk. It's a leadership talk. And there are 4 keys that I share in that talk. And they are certainly pertinent, I think, at any time within leadership. But you're right. COVID has brought, a level of challenge that none of us were prepared for. And we've all had to adapt and adjust. And I've often thought, oh my gosh, to be a leader at this time, it's one thing to be a doer. It's another when you have to lead, a number of doers. And I think there are some things that are even more critical right now. They're always important, but I think they're more critical. And probably the first one that comes to mind for me is communication. That's if you enter any organization at some point or in some place they're struggling with communication. So it's always a challenge. But I think during times like this, where things are so volatile, things are in flux on a daily basis, particularly certain industries, whether it's healthcare, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's within the educational systems. They're still trying. We're 6 months into this, and in some ways, they're still trying to figure some of this stuff out. And so I think as a leader, it is critical to maintain good channels of communication with your people. Whether it's you providing information, whether it's you checking in on them, whether it's you maybe sharing where you are, and they may be able to help you in some ways, whether it's providing, again, direction or whatever the case may be. I think communication is super critical right now. I think another area is establishing, I won't even say a vision at this point, because some organizations, they're like, we're just trying to survive right now. The vision is nice, but you got to still have goals for your people. One of the biggest challenges that I hear from so many clients at various levels is, I don't know what I'm supposed to be working on. And that was before COVID. So you can imagine right now, as things are constantly changing, people are scrambling all over. But as a leader, you don't have the luxury of operating the way your people do. You have to operate at a higher level. And I think you have to at least set some goals. I don't care if it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, but you have to give your people some direction so that they understand what needs to be done. Because when they understand what that end goal is, even when you don't paint all of the pieces, many of them can pick up the slack because they get where they're trying to go. And they go, well, he didn't mention this, or she didn't say this, but I know we've got to do this in order to help us get here. And so I think some form of goal setting has to be an integral part of the efforts that leaders are doing right now. I think another area is patience. And I say that because, again, everyone's trying to figure it out. I come from corporate recruiting. And when I left corporate, we were playing around, scratching the surface on virtual interviewing. Well, guess what? Everyone is doing virtual interviewing now. Look at us now.
All right.
And I think that as companies are having to rely on technology more, as companies are incorporating new processes, new approaches, people are working from home that never did it. I think leaders are going to have to operate with some patience with their people to get adjusted to the new environment. They need to exercise probably a little patience with themselves too. They won't, and we both know that, because we're always hardest on ourselves. But I think patience is certainly one. And then another is flexibility. Who hasn't had to flex during these times in some way? And I think if you are trying to force on an approach, if you're trying to force a mindset that's not conducive to survival right now and to success right now, you're going to lose. You're going to lose your people, you're going to lose business, and you could lose a lot more than that. And so I think people are having to be flexible with these times and go, okay, I know that's how we did it last week, but here's new information we have. Let's talk about what we need to have completed by Friday. And we've got to shift and make those adjustments. So those are certainly some of the things.
You know what, I'm gonna hone in on several words that you mentioned that I think a lot of people take for granted. You talk about adjusting, adapting, being flexible. Those may seem like common words, but when it comes to leadership, I think people define them a little differently. And what I found, and you can tell me if you've seen the same thing, some leadership, what they do is they're in a leadership position, but they're more managing instead of leading. And that's because of the inability of the organization to be flexible, the inability of the organization to adapt and adjust. And doesn't that leader set the tone or help build that culture that would allow an organization to adjust and adapt?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. There's a saying, the fish rots from the head. And it's so true. Leaders set the tone. There's no way around it. And that's part of why leaders are compensated more too, because they do have a greater level of responsibility. Unfortunately, there are leaders out here that abdicate that. They may manipulate that, and there may be some companies where they've created a culture that doesn't support that. Now, I think one of the challenges that's happened, and it's been a gradual one over the last probably 25 to 30 years, is as companies have become leaner and leaner in people, not work, but in people, it has forced everyone to do two and sometimes three different jobs. Well, when you have to just get it done, you don't have time to think like maybe you would have in the past. Because do you know what I have to get done by 5 o'clock today, by 7 o'clock tonight, by 9 o'clock tonight? And people don't have time to really think big picture like they used to. I often say, if you look at companies nowadays, most companies don't innovate like they did 40 years ago, like they did 60 years ago. The only way most companies grow nowadays is through acquisitions. Why? Because they don't have time. People don't have time to think and stop and look at processes that, this keeps going off the track right here. Let me just observe this for a week. I just want to see what's happening here. They can look at it and go, oh, here's what we need to do. And they devise some innovative way to address it, which saves the company millions of dollars. It saves time, or it helps them to make millions of dollars. People don't have time to do that because everyone has to get stuff done. And I think a lot of that is driven from leadership. So, leaders can blame a lot on staff, but I would say staff can blame a lot on leadership or lack thereof as well. And then I think a lot of companies, they may provide some initial training for new leaders. We've all seen that.
Yes.
But what about those executives? I can remember times when I was in corporate and I had executives who were going to interview candidates. And after I talked with the candidate, maybe the person was hired, I found out this executive had no clue what they were doing from an interviewing standpoint. So just because you're in that role does not mean you've been properly prepared and that you're executing it properly. And I think that there are things that we need to continue support with leaders, because I have coached leaders and I will tell you firsthand, they feel the pressure to know everything and they don't. And you find that out one-on-one. And I've had leaders who were actually relieved that they had somewhere where they could just kind of let their hair down and remove the facade. And they go, oh, I don't even know how to figure this one out. But they can't say that at work. And because there's no ongoing development a lot of times for leaders, they're struggling, they're pretending. People below them aren't going to challenge them that much. They know how to manage up, so their boss isn't really seeing it. And the whole organization and all of the people are being shortchanged as a result.
Wow. Wow, that's a very good insight. I always tell people that just because you're in a leadership position doesn't necessarily make you a leader. And I know when I go to companies that think they're leading the industry, and I try to work and do an engagement with them for some type of improvement, I have to do an assessment on where they are today. I don't just have that cookie cutter approach and say, oh, you need to do A, B, and C. I need to find out where you are, what your vision is, and where you want to go. So when you sit down with a client that you're coaching, how do you assess their current state? How do you assess where they are so you know how to customize your approach to help them get to their next level?
Well, again, it depends upon how they come. If it's a corporate client, then I have probably had, not probably, but I've had some initial discussion with their leadership to understand, one, why do you want coaching for them, and what is the end game? What do you want them to have achieved at the end of this? And then, and talking with the client, I start to ask them questions about, do you understand why you and I are meeting? And sometimes you will throw questions out there just to get a feel for the response, and just the tone of the response can tell you a lot. The body language can tell you a lot, and then of course the actual words can tell you even more. And so it's looking at those types of things. I will ask, so what do you want to get out of this? I've talked to your boss. but what do you want? And what would be value add for you? And we start to have those discussions, and part of it may be trying to fuse the two wants together to make it work. Fortunately, a lot of times there's consistency, which makes it a lot easier. But even again, with a client who is seeking coaching on their own, I always do an exploratory discussion because I need to learn a little bit about your background. What are you trying to do? Where are you now? And I will often pose those same, similar questions. Well, what is it you're trying to accomplish? Why are you seeking coaching? And I ask, what have you done on your own? To start to gauge how much initiative do you have for improvements. And we talk about, where they are, what they're trying to do, and how I may be able to help.
Wow, that's awesome. I have one more question for you.
Sure.
And I kind of want you to talk to that leader, that executive, or even that business owner that they know coaching is required, but sometimes you don't know what you don't know. What would you suggest they do to prepare for themselves? That self-reflection they need to have so they know what they need to get out of a coaching session with Bernie.
No, that's a great question. And I think you actually just said some of it. They need to do some self reflection. And again, if it's where their boss wants them to pursue coaching, can they see it? Do they understand the reason or reasons why? Because sometimes they'll go, I was resistant at first, but I get it now.
Mm.
And some of it, it's that old, but let a man examine himself. And we have to do that from time to time. And sometimes when we hold that mirror up, we don't necessarily like what we see. But the only way to get past it is to examine yourself, be honest with yourself, and be open to a process that can help you move past that and get you to a better place. And I think if leaders would start to understand that, this is not about a coach saying you need to do this and you're a loser and boy, your boss thinks you're dumb. It's not about that at all. We all have shortcomings. We all have blind spots. And to be quite honest with you, we all need coaching. I've heard people say everyone needs counseling. And I'm like, you're probably right. But I also think everyone needs coaching in some area. I've had multiple coaches for different things because I would try it and I kept running into a wall and I went, this is not working. So I'm wasting time while I'm trying to get to a place and I'm still not getting there. And so when I got coaching, it was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I couldn't see that. And I think a lot of times leaders need to understand they don't have to have all the answers. They have to be open to all of the answers that can work for them. And some of those answers will come from them, some will come from other people. And a lot of times they need to know they have permission to not be the know it all and to have all of the answers. And a coach can help them see that and help them start to navigate where they are to get to that place of success that they want.
What incredible insight. I said I can talk to you all night, and I'll say that again because we can keep this conversation going. So I might have to bring you back for a part three.
Oh no.
But you know what, Bernie, I'd like to thank you for your time. This has been an incredible conversation. If I'm an individual and I'm watching this and I'm either on the fence about coaching or I didn't even know what coaching was for, whether I'm a business leader or whether I'm someone that's trying to advance my professional career or I'm a business owner that's just starting off, my takeaway from this is I need to look in the mirror and I need to call Bernie. I need a coach and I need someone. So we'll put all your information down in our comments. But I appreciate your time. I thank you for joining us for part two. Looking forward to part three.
Well, thank you. Like I said, it's been a pleasure. I feel the same way. We could talk on this. I think we have a meeting of the minds in so many ways on these types of subjects. And I really try to encourage people to be open to coaching and for whatever area. There are life coaches, health coaches, business, all these areas. But the thing that I try to impart upon people is when you shut down and you aren't open to change and you aren't open to new, I want you to think of three businesses who felt the same way: Sears, Kmart, and Blockbuster. They weren't open to change, and we see where they are today. And the same thing can happen, or similar things can happen to us as individuals. If we aren't open to trying new things and exploring new avenues, we can get behind as well. And that's something that I know I try, and I know all coaches want to help people not get into that type of rut because it makes it harder to come out of.
Wow, some more of those golden nuggets from Bernie Frazier. I appreciate them.
Thank
Well,
you. Thank you
I'd like to
again.
thank you again. I'd like to thank all of our listeners and viewers. If you're interested in hearing more, or you just want to learn how you can get to your next level, feel free to visit us at infinitebusinessstrategies.com. We'll provide a link to Bernie's site and for you to buy her book. I encourage you to do that as well. You can also schedule a free 30-minute consultation where we can talk about you and your plan on getting to the next level. You can join one of our business workshops that we're conducting in many cities near you, or you can have us come in to do a maturity assessment of your site to see what it takes to open up the doors to effective leadership in your organization. My name is Terrell Curry. I'd like to thank you. Bernie, I'd like to thank you once again.
Thank
And
you.
I look forward to seeing you guys at that next level.